All right, before I get started, can we talk about how this is basically like a rebranded LCS final match? They just slap a world sticker on it and then boom, viewership goes up 3x. That's kind of crazy, no? But in real business, this draft was kind of insane. I think both teams really pulled out all the stops in terms of forcing themselves to gain an advantage in draft wherever possible and really having like secret prepared picks ready. And both teams were kind of dynamic. Like it's for NA teams. I think historically a lot of NA teams are kind of boring in terms of the way they draft. They historically draft by the book a lot, at least the good ones, and ends up like leaving themselves kind of to get punished, or they don't really have much of a character, right? Not with these two teams, right? We got the full circus fest. I would say we got the FlyQuest side with the Whippo, Giga Chad counter picks. One of the only NA teams that still kind of does this and really wants to get really creative, and they're down for it. Especially with the psychopath like Casio and like the Ivern and other stuff that they've been busting out, right? Like you can see it in the Ivern band here, and we have it on the TL side, right? We have the Nico APA. We've got other crazy stuff that they're just down to kind of go for, right? And I think teams like this, they just need their edge. They just need to get wacky, go for it, and really try shit out. Hit against, shit's against the fan right now. They're gonna pull out all the stops, and you kind of see it in this draft here, right? So every single draft, I think there was something interesting to take away, and it kind of forces the dynamic and kept both teams on their toes. So from a draft perspective, even though both of these teams are, let's say, not front runners for the entire event, it's super cool that they actually managed to get so creative and really push themselves in terms of draft, even though both their backs are against the wall. This is an extremely high stakes match, right? The loser just is out, and it's you're fighting your own North American brethren, and when you have this in mind, it's like kind of crazy. What's also crazy is that the priorities are shifting so much. Look at the Skarner opener here from Fly. It's pretty chill. They leave the Aurora. They don't care. This is most likely because Whipple has something for it. Look, like Liquid's a little scared. If I'm going to be honest, they're like, why they leave it open though? Yone priority has also dropped this entire series. They don't really care. I think both these teams don't really care that much about Jax. It's like really interesting the way they focus it around. So starting off with this opener. So we've been seeing a lot of Xin Zhao as the response into Skarner, really slowing him down, not giving him enough options. I eat my own words here as they open the Jax, which does secure a pretty solid, strong start for topside. And the main thing to point with this draft is that I believe FlyQuest actually make a really good use of the Ashe here. So this is something I've been pointing out like a lot, where with Ashe's open, it's probably the best AD carry just overall because it has a really strong matchup spread, and especially into the Callista, which has been rising up and up against a lot of comps that have been making use of it. They've been using her as the de facto pick in order to secure lane priority, and it has decent flexibility because you can flex it with the aggressive side with things like the Leona, Alistar, Rel, and then you can also go backwards a little bit with Renato, Nico, right? So you have a lot of flexibility. I would argue Ashe has even more flexibility because she shit stomps Callista in lane, and she has the same level of openness in terms of being able to play both forwards and backwards, right? And she also fares well into two of the, like, let's say, hottest AD carries coming back up right now, which are one, the Callista aforementioned, and two, the Xayah. So a lot of teams have been bringing up the Xayah as well because of the rise of things like the Nocturne, the rise of things like the Vi as well, and Xayah curbs both of them well, right? It's not because Xayah is necessarily good, it's because of like that ability specifically. And Ashe also dumpsters her in lane for the most part, right? So, and you can blind it. Like, this is going to be something that I think we're going to see more of as we get deeper into the drafts. We've been seeing a lot more shifts as well in terms of teams playing relatively flexible. And you can kind of see it here. They go for the Lulu on 5, which is really smart because at this point, when you see 4 of the picks that TL have, you can kind of notice that there's not much in terms of, let's say, true forward that they have on the table, right? And it disincentivizes a lot of forward picks. You can see cores being like, yeah, it's not like Nautilus is not good here. Fly has a really strong front to back, and they can just really curb any engage that like TL have to offer, right? Xin Zhao goes in. I'm not gonna lie, he's pretty homeless. We have the Kisante to peel him right back out. Lulu can peel him right off. It's going to be really chill. Skarner can push him away. Like, it's really good. It's well set up for this Ashe, right? The only matchup within the current meta that I would say fares like truly well into the like truly okay in lane into the Jhin is into the Ashe is Jhin. But this is still favorable for the Ashe because what happens now is that yeah, the matchups even in Jhin can stabilize, but then you just pick more tanks and then the Jhin is homeless. So that's what happens here when you get like a catch-22 against this Ashe, right? You're basically guaranteed to not have a good matchup on bot side, and you expose yourself to like a surprise Lulu pick essentially, but it's actually good because of the fact that contextually, right? Draft is all about context, and contextually, when you see the enemy comp and you peel back and you just play for front to back, it's really chill that you can just play the Ashe Lulu here, and their comp can't really do much, especially with a TK on 5. I think I don't blame Liquid here because this is a pick that I'm pretty sure this is the first Lulu pick all tournament, and there's not. When you're in a high pressure situation, this is potentially a pick you're going to go home on. What are you thinking? Ashe Lulu, what are your counters, right? When you have Jhin, right? It's kind of hard to think of something on the spot like that when you haven't even practiced it as well. Like, if you want my raw recommendation in terms of a purely champion perspective of like what they should pick here, it would actually be like Xerath or like Lux, right? Something with like decent range can create a new win con for TL in a situation where they need to salvage it on a support on 5 where they don't have much ability to win front to back anymore and they can't engage, right? They've already shafted themselves in this draft a little bit with that lack of flexibility, which is a different topic to discuss for itself. But in terms of using the 5th pick to really get something, I would definitely say that TK is not the pick. And I would like encourage to either match like front to back or stat check, or create a siege condition, which is totally possible. FlyQuest did ban out the Ziggs in exchange for this, but with things like Ezreal open, with things like going like Jhin Xerath, Jhin Lux, it's very counterintuitive, but I think you need to pull out the stops like this in order to salvage yourself from a situation like this. So even in this one game, it's quite interesting. Second game, they go for a completely different direction, which I do enjoy. I think whenever in series, the mark of a good team is the ability to nuke the draft dynamic when something doesn't work, right? So plan A doesn't work, we have to have plan B. Plan B can't be the same thing because with like a minor adjustment, because if it didn't work and you're sure it didn't work not because of execution, but because fundamentally the decision is weird, then you have to nuke the decision. You have to try something else, right? So good on TL. They go for the Nocturne opener, and basically what this does is it disincentivizes some comps when you slam it on one, right? Your AD carry pool especially is a little bit more limited because you have to think about what picks that can you go for that don't basically cuck your own AD carry, right, and make them a target the entire time. And it also disincentivizes, or it forces the mid lane picks as well. Like the immobile mages aren't going to be as strong because the Nocturne is going to be really effective against them. So it basically forces the Ahri pick on 1-2, and then TL can basically extend that trade and then go for the Trist on 2-3 here. And so it's not something that's like necessarily good. This is another contextual pick which forces priority into the Ahri and creates a really good scenario. I'd say with the Nocturne, it automatically brings out, I believe, the Renata ban, and they don't choose to go for the Nico ban here, but two bans that basically prevent Fly from going backwards once again. And then Fly actually respond with the Vi, and then TL go to Xayah Rakan, which is one of the strongest openers remaining. So you basically just have the fabled 3 winning lanes here when you're TL. So, and then in professional play, you're usually not gonna have a bad time when you go for it. FlyQuest and going the Senna on 5 here is pretty crazy, if I do say so myself. I personally probably would have liked to see something more backward, but it's a little bit hard with a comp like this when you already secured the Vi, and it could be something that like the team mentioned that as like a matchup and potentially a counter into the Xayah Rakan just in case. So I would say it's not a bad try, but I'm not the biggest fan. I do think TL kind of played them well here, played their cards well, forcing Fly to basically go a certain way, and then once they do, it's checkmate, right? It's cooked. Game 3. So you can already tell from the first 2 games, it's so dynamic, and teams have so much prepared, right? we got back, and this time we have Fly back on blue side, and then now we see the Galio top lane matchup with paired with a Yone, and this is the first Yone of this series, I'd say. So it's Fly's turn to basically switch up the dynamic, and look at this APA Kled, you know. And technically this is a soft flex, right? Because you could go Kled into Galio here. This is something that Fly had to think about, and I do commend that TL go for something like this. They risk it all. They put all the beans on something like this. This is a crazy pick to all in your world's like contention on, by the way. You have to have the cojones for this. So I do respect it a lot. Pretty sick that they do. I do think they should have banned the Xayah though, since its presence was pretty prominent all series, but I understand these two bans as well. It's pretty hard to actually gives a lot of problems as well, even though it has less, let's say, sort of self-peel. So maybe something like the Xayah is more doable. But this does result in the self-counter pick for TL, and I think on something like this, with a like comp defining as a Kled, you probably can shift it to 4, because by doing so, you end up revealing a little bit less, and then you can ban out the champs that would be able to curb this well. So you could go, let's say, support AD on 3, you can even go Xayah on 3. Then you ban like, you still ban Ashe Renata, and then you force the Rakan ban, and then boom, you know, you're basically Teal have no, I mean Fly have no answer into this, right? And then it makes it really interesting. But I think Fly managed to have enough time to really salvage and round out their comp, basically with the Xayah, in order to stabilize, and then it managed to keep them afloat here, and it gave them just enough room to kind of go off on this. But really cool drafts overall, I think, from both sides. And you know, I just want to highlight what the little bit of back and forth in the picks. And to be honest, even though they're both NA teams, I'm a little bit pleasantly surprised. I think it was a pretty cool drafting perspective. So I wanted to share that with you today, and hopefully you got to see some of that magic from this series as well. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I'll catch you in the next one.